This dialogue will be entitled "The Party's Over." Truth is, it's been over for a while. What party am I talking about? I'm talking about the state of affairs that Americans have accepted as normal. This concept of get good grades in primary school, go to university, get degrees, get job, whatever. White picket fence, vacation home, blah, blah, blah. 2.5 kids or 2.5 dogs or whatever the fuck, right? Look at all that is over. And the other thing that's over is the idea of this so-called representative democracy. It was always fake. It was always kind of half-ass in its representation of the American people. Um, you know, people of people of certain melanation content know what it's like to not be represented at all. But nevertheless, reforms and fluctuations, they come about. Your mileage will vary, but overall, from the standpoint of class interest and the overall well-being of your life, there is no party for you to vote for. It is absolutely imperative that people overcome the brain rot of Democrat, Republican, and all of the assorted hypnosis in their accompanied aligned media. Capitalist are capitalist. The bourgeoisie is the bourgeoisie. The corporate is the corporate. It doesn't matter if it's Fox News, Newsmax, MSNBC, CNN, whatever, New York Times, whatever. All of these outlets and the parties, the two horrible corporate warmongering parties that they advocate for, all of that is oppositional to you, the working citizen. All of that is your enemy. Whether you see it or not, that's up to you. That's your own business. But like Ayn Rand once said, and here I am quoting Ayn Rand. You're not supposed to do that, but here we are. Ayn Rand once famously said, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. Right? So if you're part of QAnon or Blue Anon, you are, unfortunately, ignoring reality. All that shit is bullshit. It's about time you moved on and grew up a little bit. Those people, those people would burn you to death at an effigy of Moloch. Those people would see you irradiated and turned to ash before they give up a single cent of the wealth that they parasite off of the system that we inhabit. The party is also over when it comes to all of this great man theory, great heroes, great titans of industry. You got to come up off of that bullshit because it's bullshit and it's bad for you. Guys like Elon, guys like, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. I mean, you got to understand that the state funded the R&D for their tech ventures, right? It's not to say that these people didn't work hard or didn't have some prowess in their own respect, but there is a vast amount of government/university research and development that went into the initial projects that made these people who they are. And then also, you're looking at a guy like Elon. He's also inherited a big bucket of, money from slave labor, essentially. Right? So there is nothing aspirational about that. Right? And there's nothing hard work TM, registered trademark, about that. When you're just waking up, climbing out your mother's pussy hole with a pocket full of dirty money, that's not hard work. Okay? Especially when that dirty money is extracted from, more or less slavery. Okay? So these are just a few things that you have to come to the realization on. The party is over, right? There is no voting your way out of this hell where you can't afford to live, where you can't afford a home, where you could work full time and still be poor. These things, they seem things like that, they seem like impossibilities. They seem like contradictions, but they're very true, very real. Lots of people, they work 40 hours a week and then do another thing, work a side hustle, as they call it, burning the candle at both ends, draining themselves to the point of, deteriorating health and, teetering on the edge of madness. They do these things and find themselves still unable to afford a basic bitch life. Why would that be the case? Well, it is the case because things are organized to be that way. If you are not one of the people that owns what you would call in the old Marxist speak means of production, that is to say, factories, businesses, land, particularly agricultural land, but also real estate. Like, if you don't have in your possession these assets that you can exploit and benefit from, if you are surviving based on working, the system is against you. The very nature of the tax code is against you because you pay a greater percentage in wages based on your worked slave labor, your wage cucked labor. You pay a greater percentage in that than a man who is benefiting from capital gains, right? So the rich boy will tell you just buy stocks. That's quite ironic considering that you're getting paid shit tier slavery wages at your little job. You can't afford to buy at the level of volume necessary for you to benefit from owning stocks. So yes, many poor people, they reach down, sift through the lint in their empty pockets and pull out a couple of coins or two so they can buy stocks. Yeah, people do that. But the volume of stocks that they have is useless. They don't have enough shares to get back a dividend check that is worth receiving. So the whole venture is a waste of time unless you have enough seed capital to put in the first place. That's what Fox Business wouldn't tell you. Business Insider doesn't really get into all that, right? Because it should be obvious. But the suit and makeup types, the commentators with the fake up, caked up, they'll jump up there and say this dumb shit as if you are stupid. They speak down to you, right? Talking about how you should buy stocks. Buy stocks with what money? The rent money, the food money, the transit money. Yeah, that's bullshit. And you know it, right? And they know it too. So friends, you're not going to be able to vote your way out of this, but I also want to caution you against the very dangerous notion of adventurous activity. What do I mean by that? I mean random, uncoordinated, violent acts, political assassinations, and creating random riots, things of that sort. These things are not sustainable, nor are they systemically valuable. a individual sporadic act of violence or destruction, it's not going to help you either. It'll only put you through the legal system, the so-called criminal justice system, a system that has nothing really much to do with justice, but that's what they call it. You don't want to get entangled in that. It's just another trap. So adventurism is not going to help you. Party's over on that kind of shit. Party's over on all this protesting. Going outside with a sign, dressed up like a frog or a dinosaur, hitting an electric slide and twerking. That's not going to help you. That's just blowing off steam. That's just, emotional outburst. And do it if you must. Whatever. It's your right to do so, I guess, until they take that right away from you. But that is not functional either. It's not going to help you. It's not going to get you anywhere. So, party's over on that too. People say, "What's the solution? What's the solution? You talking the problem, but what's the solution?" Solution or solutions, it's a lot more complicated. It's more like a set of difficult maneuvers that you may or may not want to do. It involves things like building new political parties. It involves things like building dual power networks to replace functions that the government and the corporates engage in. And that would involve coordinating with your fellow citizens and your fellow workers in small cadres at first, but gradually over time, those organizations could link together and merge and amalgamate. And if everyone keeps their eyes on the prize, they could become some sort of faction. This would enable the common man to wrestle some degree of power away from the oligarchy. But even then, there's a very strong probability that the oligarchy, in their endless greed and their endless corruption, will crash the whole system before any such thing could be built. And even if your cadres were built, there's obviously the risk of extreme crackdowns from, the boys in blue or other affiliated jackboot organizations. So, what's the realistic solution, the close at hand solution? Well, I don't have a good answer for you there. Unfortunately, the path is very unclear. Very, very unclear. One stratagem that I've seen that shows a good degree of promise is simply removing yourself from this system, this society, removing yourself from the country. It's a stratagem that people have been deploying at an increasing rate, and it does show some promise, but there's obvious fragility and limitations attached to that. And if you don't have the funds to escape, then you will not be able to leave, at least not legally. Food for thought. But yeah, it's very black pilling. The party is definitely over.